Okay, this morning we're going to talk about lesson 1-4, which is angle measure. In this lesson we have to discuss a number of vocabulary terms, and the first one we're going to talk about is array. Again, we've already talked about what a line is. So we say array is a line that extends in one direction infinitely from a point. So if I've got a point, it's going to be a point with a line extending in one direction. Think about a sun ray. You get the sun, the ray of light starts at the sun and it extends indefinitely a great distance. So that would be considered a ray. It's a line with an endpoint. And again, it extends indefinitely in one direction. Okay, so whenever we identify a ray, again we need two letters, capital letters. If this is ray AB, we would identify that by saying AB with a line and an arrow over the top. So again, two capital letters, always start with the endpoint or the vertex when you're listing the first letter, and again it's an arrow over the top. We say opposite rays share a common endpoint and they go in opposite directions. So a picture of that would look something like this. Here's the endpoint. So what we would say in this picture is that AB, ray AB, is an opposite ray with AC. Okay, so it's collinear, which means it lies on the same line. Notice it's straight, and again, going in opposite directions. So again, if we're just defining that, they share a common endpoint. And they're collinear. You know, remember what we said collinear means? Collinear means that they make a straight line. So again, notice endpoint going that way and going the other way. Okay, our next term is an angle. We just defined what a ray is. Now let's define an angle. We say an angle is two rays called sides that share a common endpoint called a vertex. Okay, so if we've got a picture of that, we've got a endpoint. And notice we've got two rays there forming the angle. One of the things that's important when we're talking about an angle is how we describe the angle, and we use this little symbol here for the angle. We always want the vertex to be the middle point when we're identifying. So we'd say this is angle BAC. We could also say it's angle CAB. But notice the vertex is always the middle point. So BAC, CAB. When we're talking about an angle and we have points, it's important to identify and understand the difference between points that are on the interior and points that are on the exterior. If I would put a point here, D, that is inside the angle, so we would call that an interior point. If I put a point way out here, let's call it point E. Notice here's the angle, point E is outside, so we call that an exterior point. We're going to talk about some different types of angles. I think it's important for you to be able to classify your angles. The first type is a right angle. We know that a right angle has a measure of 90 degrees. Again, a lot of times if we're talking about a right angle, we put a little box in the corner that indicates that it's a right angle. Get a lot of real life examples of a right angle. The corner of a room could be a right angle. Most houses, think about the wall and the floor, that makes a right angle. So a lot of examples there. The next type is an acute angle. We say that an acute angle is less than 90 degrees and greater than 0. So less than 90, greater than 0. So again, here's a picture. Again, here's 90. It means that the angle has to be smaller than 90 degrees. All right. The next type is an obtuse angle. We say an obtuse angle is bigger than 90. So opens up wider. So here's 90, has to be bigger than that. Now we also say obtuse has to be less than 180 and bigger than 90. And 180 means that it is completely flat. So here's 180. Inside that until we get to 90. So less than 180, greater than 90. Okay, so that's our main classifications of an angle. In right is 90, acute less than 90, obtuse bigger than 90, and less than 180. Our next term is an angle bisector. Again, a lot of vocabulary in this section. We say an angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. So if I've got an angle here, let's say that this is angle ABC. If I'm going to split that angle in half with a ray, we'll call this ray BD, we would consider ray BD to be the angle bisector because it makes this angle and this angle the same measure. So it splits the angle in half. Notice these little markings with the little line indicate that the two angles are congruent. So therefore we can state that BD is, or ray BD is the angle bisector.